Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. I'm doing an advanced Dungeons and Dragons monster video on the Lich. One of the most potent undead forms is that of the Lich. There are people who argue which is more powerful, a Lich or a vampire. I would go with a Lich any day of the week because vampires are nasty, but vampires aren't necessarily willing. They can be quite bad, quite nasty, but liches are a special kind of evil. One of the worst parts of a lich is that becoming a lich was voluntary. The guy who became a lich saw what it was evil enough to want it, was smart enough to make it happen, and powerful enough to get the job done. What this means is that he is happy with his power and he's willing to use it. He enjoys hurting people. The Lich can be found on page 61 of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual. Be sure to read through the description very, very thoroughly before you use a Lich in your game. A Lich can eliminate an entire high-level party post-haste with minimal effort. Liches, as depending on how you play them and what, there's no upper limit, I think, to the power level of a Lich. Liches are supremely powerful. A Lich was an 18th level spellcaster at a minimum before he became a Lich, and he retains all of that. He could have been a 20th level or a 25th level or a 30th level caster or whatever, and in multiple classes. He could be cleric, magic user, illusionist, that kind of thing. Multiple classes, he gets still that high level. He's got to be a minimum of 18th level spellcaster in at least one of those classes. The touch of a Lich causes 1 to 10 points of damage. Why a Lich would go into personal combat, I don't know, but it's got that neat ability. Just a touch does a D10 damage. Additionally, that touch will cause paralysis to the victim unless that victim fails a savings throw. Unless that victim makes a savings throw. You make the savings throw, you don't get paralyzed. This can be devastating if the Lich is in melee combat. The mere sight of a Lich causes fear in any victim lower than 5th level. So, a 4th level character is walking along, he sees a Lich and turns and runs in fear. And there's no save for that. I don't believe there's a save for that. At any rate, a Lich can be devastating. Years ago, I was going to play in my friend Mark's game. I'd roll up a character, and I was going to play in his existing 12th level campaign. He had been running this game for some time. His players were very experienced and well equipped in magic items and weaponry. They knew what they were doing. This group was playing in Mark's game, and Mark is an excellent, excellent dungeon master. A little bit of background, Mark started playing Dungeons and Dragons with the same group I started with back in the day. When I became a dungeon master, he started playing in my game. He is such an excellent gamer. He became an exceedingly excellent dungeon master. He keeps accurate and in-depth notes on every aspect of his game. This guy, for a 0 level, he'll bring a notebook, a spiral notebook, to a 0 level, what they call 0 level now. It's when, making up characters and the backstory and like that. He'll bring a notebook to take notes. And it's like minutes of a meeting. He takes accurate notes. One of the most annoying things about Mark is, it's the same basic annoying thing with Gerald. Gerald does it from memory. He's a freak like that. He's freaking awesome. Mark takes notes. Mark can show you, look, on this date, this happened, It's annoying. But it also makes him a great gamer. An excellent game master. At any rate, I'm going to play in his game. It's a 12th level campaign. It's been going for a while. I made a character. I showed up. When I showed up, Mark pulled me aside and said that he had been called in to work. He could not get out of it. He wanted me to take over running his game for the night. I agreed, and then he gave me the rundown for the session. The player characters had been investigating an underground fortress. They were supremely confident, his words, supremely confident. They were overconfident was the word he used. They were bordering on hubris and had no idea what was down there. They were walking in like they owned the place and had no idea what they were walking into. Then he handed me the villain for his game. It was a Lich. It was a 24th level magic user and a 24th level cleric of Asmodeus. And it had all those spell capabilities. On top of that, its primary weapon was a rod of paladin slaying. He had a folder on the Lich. It was quite thick. As I said, Mark takes excellent notes. He told me that his players needed to be taught humility, and he wanted me to go all out. The Lich had been scrying on them daily for months. They had no idea that the bad guy was a Lich, but this guy had been keeping tabs on them by scrying and had been watching them for a long time. Mark had the in-depth notes about what they did, what they were doing, what their routine was like, what abilities they had, what magic items they had. This Lich knew virtually everything about them. I said, okay. So Mark headed off to work, and I sat down at the table. Most of his players were unknown to me, but I did know two of them. My friend Tim runs the best cleric I've ever seen in the game. And there was one other guy, I knew him in passing, and I cannot remember his name. He was I'm not disparaging him. He was an excellent gamer, good guy, really great gamer. I can't remember his name. It's been years. I cannot remember his name. At any rate, when Tim saw me sit down, he immediately started prepping his character for the game. The rest of the group figured that they were going to have an easy game. The Lich knew they were coming. He had ample time to prepare. He had ample time to prepare specifically for their characters because he had been watching them for all this time. The underground situation, there was a huge cavern up in there was a hidden door with a stairwell that led up to a kind of a hidden balcony high up, and the Lich had improved invisibility on, and it was up in that balcony. Well, down below, the Lich gated in several minor devils, summoned orcs, and a red dragon with monster summoning. The player characters ran into the room and engaged the devils and the other distractions. While they were fighting, I hit them with multiple meteor swarms and fireballs, and I finished off the paladin with the rod. The only survivor was Tim's cleric, who ran away. Tim survived, and by the same rule we use, if one person survives, everybody else can make up characters and continue on the same campaign. If they die, the entire group has to start the campaign over or do a different thing. Since Tim's character survived, the group was able to make up new characters and continue in that campaign. The good part of all this was that the players were all good-natured about it, and they were all, and to this day, as far as I know, we're all still friends. I can't remember half of their names, but, I'm still on good terms with them if I see them in the street. This story is pretty similar to the Have Fun Storming the Castle story that I related a few years ago. The major difference being that in that story, most of those players got mad and never played with me again. Mark's group were much better gamers. They took a defeat and learned from it. When we continued, because I actually got to play with them after that, when Mark was running the game, they were a lot less conceited. They didn't have the overconfidence problem. They became better gamers, and the group as a whole was a hell of a lot more mature. But back to point, Liches can completely devastate a group. Make sure you tailor the Lich to your group's capability level. Never ever run a Lich against a group with less than 6 players or against players lower than 12th level. If you run a Lich against a group with less than 6 players who aren't at least 12th level, you are a killer dungeon master by definition. You need to do something about your situation because it's not fair. There are player characters, individual player characters, who can hold their own against a Lich. Generally speaking, the dungeon master has to be a Monty Hall and grant them all kinds of special abilities and neat, magic items and all that. But if you're a quality dungeon master, there's none of your players less than 12th level will be able to even touch a Lich, more or less. I mean, yeah, they'll be able to hit him, but they'll die quickly. Just keep that in mind. Again, I'm not trying to tell you how to run your game. You run it how you want, and the main thing is that you and your players are having fun. That's the main thing. I'm just trying to give a little advice from an old hack wargamer who's seen and done a few things. Hope this finds everybody well. You folks have a good day. God bless one and all. Clarissa Lowe, a historian from the future. Delmore Kane, a Civil War veteran turned outlaw. This oddball pairing faces a conspiracy of epic proportions spanning the centuries. If you like action and adventure westerns with a splash of science fiction and fantasy, check out my book series Drifters and their ongoing adventures.